John 16:8 says that this three-step testing prophetic message is the work of the Holy Spirit. It says, and when he has come, he will reprove the world of sin. That's the first angel's message. And of righteousness. It's in the second message where righteousness is manifested. And of judgment to come. October 22nd, 1844, judgment came in the Millerite history. Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? Psalm 77:13. The Holy Spirit convicts of sin. That's the courtyard. Of righteousness. That's the holy place. Of judgment. That's the most holy place. It's in the courtyard where we're purified at the foot of the cross. It's in the holy place where we're made white with the righteousness of Christ. And it's in the most holy place where we're tried. Three-step testing process. It's the everlasting gospel from the beginning to the end. It's the same gospel. It's the gospel that produces two classes of worshipers and then demonstrates them. Okay? And if you want to use the theological terms, you see them under there. The courtyard is justification, the holy place is sanctification, and the most holy place is glorification. Okay? We'll add to the quote we've already looked at. Many who went forth to meet the bridegroom under the first and second angel's message refused the third angel's message, the last testing message to be given to the world. The parable of the 10 virgins was given by Christ himself, and every specification should be carefully studied. A time will come when the door will be shut. When's the door shut? At the third test. The third test, the door is shut. Okay? Notice this next quote, and it's from Christ Object Lessons 123. Both the parable of the tares and that of the net plainly teach that there's no time when all the wicked will turn to God. And just put this in a little bit of current context. The primary self-supporting ministry in Europe, the one that invites the well-known self-supporting ministries from the United States over to have camp meetings in Germany, has been doing it for 10 or 12 years, 13 years. They recently had a camp meeting this year, about 5 months ago. And a brother we work with was invited to present the last 6 verses of Daniel 11, which he did. And then when he finished, they added one extra special presentation in to try to straighten out what he was teaching about the last 6 verses of Daniel 11. And they got up there and they made the claim that all the ministries that they work with, and they named off ministries in the United States and in Europe that they work together, that they had determined that what we're teaching here is erroneous based upon the idea of the closing of the door. They teach that where we put an emphasis in our prophetic message that is erroneous is that we teach that on October 22nd, 1844, a door was closed. Yeah, it was. They don't deny that. But they're saying that we're emphasizing that when this history is repeated at the end of the world, that the door is closed on Adventist probation. But what they're saying is that what was really demonstrated on October 22nd, 1844 is that the door was open in the most holy place. Therefore, at the Sunday law at the end of the world, it's not teaching about a closed door. It's talking about the Lord opening the door of salvation to Adventism at the Sunday law. And that's some of the darkest darkness I've ever heard. But notice this next quote. Both the parable of the tares and that of the net plainly teach that there is no time when all the wicked turn to God. Who are the wicked? Who are the wicked? They're Cain. There you go. There's Cain. They're the foolish virgins. And when are they demonstrated? At the third test. They're developed during this threefold testing process, but at the third and final test, they're manifested. They're demonstrated. Okay, that's the judgment step. All right? So both the parable of the tares and that of the net plainly teach that there is no time when all the wicked will turn to God. The wheat and tares grow together until the harvest. The good and the bad fish are together drawn ashore for the final separation. Again, these parables teach that there is no probation after the judgment. When the work of the gospel is completed, there immediately follows the separation between the good and the evil, and the destiny of each class is forever fixed. Okay? When the everlasting gospel is accomplished here at the end of the world upon Adventism, when you get to that third test of Peter, and you're either saying, yes, Lord, I love you, and you're converted, or as Peter's saying, you're cursing that third time around, there's a separation between those two Peters, between Cain and Abel. The door is closed, and the character of both Peters, of Cain and Abel, is fixed for eternity. Of course, the third test for Adventism at the end of the world is Sunday law. Let both tares and wheat grow together until the harvest. Then it is that the angels do the work of separation. We can't tell in this room who's a wheat and who's a tare, right? Now, we do have the responsibility of identifying who's an open sinner. An open sinner in the church needs to be dealt with. But we don't deal, if we're doing it right, we don't deal with the tares because no one knows who's the tares. But who separates the wheat and tares? What angels? The three angels. What are the three angels? They're the everlasting gospel according to that first angel. And that is the gospel that develops and then demonstrates two classes of worshipers based upon the introduction of a prophetic message. The three angels' messages are prophecy. And the two classes are developed based on how each class responds to that prophetic message. Our threefold test we have here, Revelation 14, verses 6 through 12. And then on the bottom, for Manuscript Releases, Volume 5, page 425, it says, I then saw the third angel, said my accompanying angel, and this is in Manuscript Releases, but this particular passage is in a couple of other Spirit of Prophecy books, and this word that is word here in the other books is work. So I think this is a typo that's on the CD-ROM, so I'm going to read it the way I believe it is. It says, fearful is his work, awful is his mission. He is the angel that is to select the wheat from the tares and seal or bind the wheat for the heavenly garner. The third angel is the one that separates the wheat and the tares. Now notice what the next thing says. These things should engage the whole mind, the whole attention. Again, I was shown the necessity of those who believe we are having the last message of mercy being separate from those who are daily receiving or imbibing new error. I saw that neither young nor old should attend the assemblies of those who are in error or darkness. Said the angel, let the mind cease to dwell on things of no profit. So, what I'm saying here is that the everlasting gospel is, there's a lot of ministries that have built their ministries upon teaching what justification and sanctification are, what the nature of man is, what the nature of Christ was, what's the nature of Adam before the fall and after the fall, what's the higher nature and the lower nature. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't understand these things. We should understand these things. But when these teachers teach us that this is the everlasting gospel, I'm saying that they're wrong. Amen. That the everlasting gospel is the work of Christ in producing two classes of worshipers based upon the introduction of a testing prophetic message. And until you realize that, until you understand that, you can read the Bible over and over again and miss several illustrations of the everlasting gospel in the Scriptures. And that's what we intend to do tomorrow, is to look at Islam and Bible prophecy, a brief look at Islam and Bible prophecy. And then look at two illustrations of the everlasting gospel in the Old Testament and look at the connection that Islam has with it. And in terms of this prophetic message that's been sounding now for since at least 1995, there are truths that get recognized that the Lion of the tribe of Judah brings to light. And when they come to the surface, many times there's an argument about these truths, about whether they're valid or they're not valid. But the Lion of the tribe of Judah has consistently allowed this controversy over these truths to go on for a certain point in time. And then he'll bring other passages from the Bible and Spirit of prophecy to light where those particular subjects, they become established. All right? Anyone that's been in this message for a while, very few of them are arguing any longer about what the glorious land is. All right? The glorious land was an argument for a long time, but the glorious land, it's been established in this message. It's not the argument anymore. I'm just using that as one of many examples. Well, what I'm saying now, even though some people aren't going to be able to internalize this possibly, is that Islam is established. September 11, 2001 is established. Okay, so tomorrow we're just going to deal with a very brief understanding of that. And then we're going to look at a couple illustrations of the everlasting gospel in order to identify when the everlasting gospel impacted Adventism at the end of the world and what that means for us. Because we are very close to the third and final step where both classes are to be demonstrated. Any questions?